Ready?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Manhattan Community Board 3 Health, Seniors, Human Services, Youth Education, Human Rights Committee meeting. Today is March 3rd. My name is May Lee, and I am the committee chair. So before we start the meeting, though, I'm going to hand this over to Larissa Shainberg, who will explain the rules of the meeting.
I'm sorry, I'm working on one screen today. I feel handicapped. Bear with me a second while I pull it up. Okay, finish. Okay, good evening, and thank you for attending Community Board Health and Human Services Subcommittee. I would like to remind all attending tonight's meeting that the meeting is being recorded. At this time, we welcome all non-board members to sign in with your name and affiliation if that is applicable in our chat box. Tonight, in our meeting chat box will be used for sign-in, for materials distribution, and for technical assistance questions only. If you are experiencing any technical issues, please type a message in the chat and a facilitator will get back to you to assist. In order to reduce background noise, we ask that everyone remain muted unless you are recognized to speak. Okay, and thank you for attending. Nate, go right ahead.
Thank you, Larissa. So we will start the meeting, but before we begin the agenda, we will approve the minutes and also take the roll call. So I sent the minutes out at the last email to all the committee members. If you have any changes to those minutes, please raise your hand and speak up. So I do not see any hands raised. So I'm assuming that the minutes are good as they are. And so they have been approved. So Thomas, can you take the roll call?
Sure. So we have May Lee. Thomas is present. Larissa.
Present.
David. I don't see Eric. I don't see Shirley. Deborah's here. Deborah. Alicia's not here yet. Laura. She's present. Okay. Heidi.
Yes, here.
And I don't see Ricky yet. And Carmen.
Present.
Okay.
Sorry about that. So, so we'll just start the meeting. We have two main things to talk about today. The first one will be planning for panels. So as some of you may recall, I think most of you were on the committee last May. We did a lot of goal planning of committee goals. So one of them was to have a panel of providers focusing on homeless services. Let me just pull the thing up and read it. Does someone have it? Well, okay, we said that we would, one of our goals was to host a panel of service providers. The topic would be services, homeless services, and but also in light of, after the pandemic, what were the changes in terms of approaches and funding. For those of you who have only joined the committee maybe in the last 3 years or so, we have hosted 3 such panels in the past, once a year. One was about senior services, where we invited local senior provider, senior citizen centers. The other one was about students in education, particularly those with disabilities and IEPs, and we invited some parents as well as some advocates. And then we also had one that was focused on healthcare, where we invited the local federally qualified health centers or health clinics. And so these are all of these were local providers, and told us what they saw needs, in terms of, the community that they were seeing. And then also maybe for their own organization as well, were they lacking, certain resources or infrastructure, at senior centers. I mean, there was many infrastructure problems. So we usually did these, and we always did them in around the spring, and it was to inform us for our district needs statement. And we would sometimes highlight some stories, in our section of the district needs. Although I'm not saying that we have to do that for this time, but that's what we did in the past. And if you look to some of the district needs in the past, you'll see some stories highlighted. So it is not to promote those organizations over others, but it's just to tell a story and, make the reading a little bit more interesting. So, so homeless services, the services for the homeless, or, taking care of the needs of the homeless, has not been covered before. So this is why at last year we chose this as a topic, and it seems like it is more relevant than ever. So we can plan. So what we did is that we planned during the committee meetings. There was a lot of work that was, assigned out, and then we would come. People would do their homework and we would report back at the next meeting. The format of the panels were that they were all in person at the time. It was long before we heard of the coronavirus. And so we had a big room, they sat up there. We had prepared questions for them in advance, and they actually gave us answers in advance. So maybe it was a paragraph or a page, more like a page maybe. But they presented that at the meeting, and then there was an opportunity to ask other questions as well. This thing wasn't just for us, all members of the public were invited. Some were more well attended than others, but they could come and ask questions and, just hear from the providers. So here we are. So we can, maybe today, I think we can start by, just reaffirming that this is the topic that we want to cover. Maybe have a little bit more detailed outline of what we want to cover. Maybe assign some people to think of some questions. If we can do some brainstorming around topics to be asked, we can do it here. So that so there should be a small group of people who volunteer to maybe flesh out the questions more, or maybe we can do it here. We also need to contact the panelists. So that's a big endeavor in of itself. Contact the panelists and confirm that they come. Today we can also maybe set a target date, or set a date for when we want to have this, so that we can work backwards in terms of our plan of action to make it happen. Are there any questions?
Yeah, could I say just one thing?
Yeah, Susan.
One of the places we highlighted for the, I think it was a senior center, but it was a community center, was at Compost, and that helped get it funded. It's now funded for repairs and everything. We gave a horror story about the toilets backing up and everything.
Okay, yeah, all right. So yeah, so besides being a nice story, we actually helped, a senior center get their toilets fixed. was that what, did that help?
Well, it's a community center that was used for seniors and youth. And yeah, their toilets were backing up and they had no the plumbing and the ceilings were falling down and everything.
Yeah, I remember that. Okay. Oh, Larissa.
Hi, okay. I also would like to loop in the homeless services, mental health services, because they go hand in hand. I think we should invite panelists from both sides to get a more complete picture and across agencies, what's going on or what's not going on with outreach.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Susan, are you raising your hand?
Yeah, I was going to say what you usually also suggest is other than just agencies who are not going to tell you the truth, is, you know, to ask the providers to come talk about those issues.
When you say
Absolutely, you're
agencies,
right.
do you mean government
Yeah,
agencies?
Yes, yes, the
Okay.
government
Much
agency.
better.
okay.
It's providers much better than agencies. Susan's absolutely right. Yeah.
Right. So for those of you who don't remember any of the panels or were not a part of the committee or part of the board when we did it, all of the panelists were providers. There were no government agencies. I mean, they can come and listen, you know, and hear what the providers have to say, but you know, they are not being invited to. They're not on the panel. All right, so far we have, in terms of the topic or the focus, homeless and mental homeless providers and mental health providers. It sort of goes hand in hand. Is there anything else on that? Or should we set a date and then sort of work backwards on that?
What about community healthcare services as well? Especially considering that the cost of healthcare has really been highlighted during the pandemic, and the need for improved healthcare in these small community-based organizations that do a lot of outreach and really depend on those Medicaid dollars to provide services.
What do you mean by community healthcare?
Well, we have a lot of community-based healthcare centers, and they provide services for free for those who are uninsured. So I'm sure
That was your last
some of those
panel.
in.
That was-
So do we want to sort of,
I think that would cover
is
like
this more about
healthcare,
so-
mental
so-
health, and outreach. I don't know if that's too much.
Well, there's like this healthcare for, what you're talking about is like healthcare for all, like everyone is, you know, I mean, you know, there's a lot of mental health, you know, issues for everyone, you know, not just the homeless.
Right.
But if we
it's
are focusing on
specifically, yeah,
the
we do have a-
homeless, then it may not be those providers unless they have a specialty in providing services to those who are like in really unstable housing or just have no
Yeah,
home
but
at
we
all.
had heard from, and I'm trying to rack my brain right now, of who we had heard from before this year about the attempt to interconnect service providers, how they were trying to.
Not there yet.
No, not there. Well,
Actually, we
So-
heard that last month. I listened to last month's because we,
not
you know,
last month. It was before that. I'm trying to think who it was.
wait, okay. Well, I guess we're not
Month
there yet.
ago.
But no, so I think what it was said last month, when we had when Councilmember Batra came to give his presentation, he mentioned, and it was mentioned how
Oh,
that
it was
is
mentioned
needed.
again. You're right. You're
It was
correct,
mentioned
yeah,
again,
yeah.
but it was nothing,
Yeah.
it wasn't, yeah, so you may have heard it before because it's not a new idea. It's an idea
Yeah.
that has never been,
It's just
you know.
very difficult, especially, I mean,
Right.
just trying, HIPAA compliance
mhm.
makes everything very difficult.
Just wanted to alert you that Laura's hand. has been-
Yeah, I see
Yep.
that. Laura?
Hi. I have not, this is, as you know, my first year on the Community Board 3. So I just wanted a little bit more background as to what a panel looks like. Are we just asking for experts to come in and sit and speak to the audience? And the time frame that we're looking at, is this something that's mandatory that this committee has to do every year by a certain date? Because of the sensitivity of the time that we're dealing with what just happened with the Asian community and the meeting that we just had last month, and I'm not sure how comfortable I am hosting another meeting when we're not really going to get the answers that the community is asking for, which is numbers and what is exactly going to be done. I don't want people just coming and saying, oh, this is the vision without telling me exactly what's the action plan that's coming along with it. And by that, I mean, I would like numbers as far as how many shelters are coming into this community, how many safe havens are coming into this community. As we know, there's a crackdown on the homelessness on the MTA. So a lot of homeless people have been removed from the MTA. How is that going to affect our community? Along with, they cleaned up 14th Street between Avenue A and First Avenue. I don't know if anyone's noticed the last 48 hours, there hasn't been that many things being sold there. So how is that impacting us with what shelters and safe havens they're going to be putting here? So if I can just get a little snippet of what is it exactly that the community, what is it we're hosting? Is it just a town hall, a panel, a resource fair? If you can just give me a little bit of information on that. Thank you.
Susan, did you have, okay, did you have your hand right, Susan?
Well, I mean, if you want to go back into it, I was going to mention what's going on 14th Street and First Avenue, and, you know, whatever you don't cover, I can cover.
Oh, okay. Okay. So just to answer your question, Laura, you know, the last one we did, as I said, was before we heard of coronavirus. I think it was in 2018 was the last one we did. And it wasn't, and at that time, if we did something about homeless services, it would have been, yeah, I mean, we have this other situation now. So I think that's maybe that's something we can talk about a little bit too, because it is not a town hall. I'm sorry, but it is not for those people who, you know, want to know, you know, how many shelters we have and how many safe havens we have. And you know, it's not that the town hall that you went to on February 11th at MS 131. It's not that. It's really about, you know, like just exactly what I said in the email, you know, how are, you know, what is the approach, you know, after the pandemic, you know, after all this stuff, you know, have things changed? What do you need? You know, what do you see as providers? These are local providers, right? So, so, you know, what do you see as providers on the ground working? And it was in person, right? So it was in person once we did it at, we did one at University Settlement in their Spire Hall. We did one at Gouverneur Hospital in the auditorium. And then there was one that we did at the BRC Center, you know, the senior center, because it was about seniors. So it's, you know, often in a location that's, you know, related to the topic. I know about your concern, and maybe that's something we need to consider, because it's not for that group, you know, it's for people who really want to, you know, serve and, you know, help, you know, and you know, help the homeless. That's who it's for. And the other aspect, as I said before, it is for our district needs, because we do implement parts of that into it. So instead of us like sitting there and researching stuff, you know, we have someone come to talk to us, and members of the public, some of them might be interested too. So
yeah, I was going to say also, it's the town hall meeting we had last month, which was horrible, wasn't like a committee meeting. At DHS, you had a group of people that were already very angry. They demanded that DHS have a meeting for them. They said it was for information, but basically they wanted to get out there and scream. And DHS doesn't have those meetings, so they asked us to provide the meeting. We knew exactly what we were getting into, and it was just, it wasn't productive for us. It was that we had to go through that thing. So this is like a totally different informational, and it's not even the city, it's providers saying, like, in order for us to do our job well, these are the resources we need.
and they're very local. So might be like examples of local providers are Housing Works, maybe, well, God and Riverside, I mean, they're not local, but they have an operation here, you know, or maybe some, you know, mental, some who specialize a little bit more in the mental health, you know, aspects. You know, and quite frankly, you know, even in Chinatown, I know of like some mental health, like even a couple of the what are they called? The settlement houses, or at least one of them who does a lot of mental health services in Chinatown, has received more funding to provide services to the more people with more severe mental health issues is actually interesting. I mean, they told me they're kind of interested in this because they want to partner because they might need to be getting clients who are in a shelter or even more at Rikers Island. So, so they're like, oh, yeah, I want to hear about this. We want to work together. So, it's really for that. How we'll manage it, that's another story, but that's what our purpose is.
I see Deborah's hand up.
Deborah's hand is up.
Oh, Deborah's hand,
Yep.
and is Heidi's hand also up? Okay, Deborah and then Heidi.
Heidi's hand isn't up. I'm just making comments about her.
Oh, that's
I said her hair is pink.
Okay, Deborah.
like
I guess in following up on what Laura said, I think regardless of what the purpose or intention of our presentation will be, I do think we should be prepared for some conversation that may come out of it, because I don't know if any of you went to the Community Board 2 Health and Human Services meeting.
Yeah, May and I are both there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was there.
It was, I wasn't at the in-person meeting, but this was, just in following the chat, it was pretty intense, and a very real sentiment that was expressed by a number of the folks was, the focus seems to be on the folks who are mentally ill and or are unhoused, and the community board, that's where the community and all the attention is being focused, and not on the people who live in the community. I'm not saying right or wrong, I'm just saying that was a big part of what was expressed, and we should probably expect that there might be some sort of community voices that will want to add that to the conversation, even though that's not the purpose of the meeting.
Yeah, I stayed for the whole thing on that one, not just the chat, but they actually took the chair took questions from members of the public as well, and that was expressed there.
So the
Susan?
people at
Oh.
that meeting were the exact same people that were at our meeting. It was very well organized. And the only reason they were doing it is because they're getting a drop-in center and stabilization beds. It's because the city is putting a facility there. I don't think we're going to get any reaction whatsoever to talking about nonprofits having funding and resources for services. We're not adding anything. We're not bringing in any facilities. And Jackie's not going to come. Jackie's the person who organized it for both meetings, and he's not going to come organize against that. He doesn't care about that.
Yeah, so maybe we should focus more on the mental health side, or not just like a facility provider. I don't know. Maybe that will.
I'm not saying that we should change any plans.
Mhm.
I just was pointing out that, and Susan is saying that we shouldn't worry about that, then we're not going to worry about it. We should proceed, and I will turn off my mic.
It's all your one board member that's doing that.
So so Susan, would this be in person?
Well, so I think Paul reminded us all at the last meeting, board meeting, I think. After this month, all our meetings are going to be in person. He announced that the emergency.
I recall that. Yeah.
Yeah, emergency ends March 16th. So this month, the executive committee and the full board are after that. And then next month, we might have some meetings in the office that are able to be hybrid so that people maybe could attend, by Zoom. But anything like a panel place, everything else is going to be in person unless there's another variant.
Right. So if we plan this panel and it is considered to be part of a meeting, or it's actually the meeting, then it is going to be in person, unless something changes.
I'm pretty sure that we can have a hybrid portion for the public. Now, there's an effort involved, but we're not forbidden from doing that. And there could be a benefit to do it that way. I mean, clearly it's a burden. We would have to do it probably from the office because we have the hybrid equipment there. But
Well, I
def-
wouldn't want to have the panel meeting from the office.
Sorry, was that?
I wouldn't want to have a panel meeting in the office.
That's perfectly understandable. And that's probably the only way we could do a hybrid meeting to allow a greater amount of the public there. Is that correct?
Yeah, so what I was saying is that we could have some of our committee meetings be in the office and have them be hybrid. So you would all be there, but the public would have the option of watching over Zoom. Open meeting law requires you to be in person. But it's too small for you have panelists, it would be too small.
Yeah, we've always had it in like an auditorium type room.
Yeah. Yeah, university settlement was one.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, Larissa.
Sorry, just since that's been brought up about hybrid meetings, how, I don't know if anybody's thought about how that would look. Would we have board members in person, panelists on a panel, and then community members dialing into the Zoom? Is that how it would be set up?
I'm sorry. I was
That's
reading,
okay.
I was reading an email. Are you talking about for regular committee meeting?
Well, no, for this panel, if we
We
did
can't
decide to
have
do
a
it,
hybrid meeting for
so we
panels
would do it in person. Okay.
because it's not possible for us to take the technical equipment with us.
Well, no, I was thinking if it were done in person, if we were in person in the office and then the panelists came in as panelists on the Zoom. So, but that's a little complicated.
It's too
I don't know how
tight.
compli-
It's too tight.
Yeah.
It's
No,
too-
no,
the
they would
office
be
is too
virtual.
small.
They would be virtual, but I would think we would want them in person, but
You
The
have
office
to
is too
allow,
small.
Meeting
you
from.
have to allow the public to come there.
mhm,
Oh,
okay.
So it means we need a bigger room. We can't have, the office is not big
I don't
enough.
see that a problem. I really don't see that as a problem. You know, we've always been able to get a larger room.
Okay. Ah. So how does everyone feel about this? We would, I mean, if we're talking about district needs, because that's what you always have done this for, would we have to do this in May?
Well, the district needs, we vote on in October, which means we spend a couple of months writing on it. May would probably be very good.
May's always good. Just kidding.
I got it. Took me a while, but I got it.
All right.
The issue is to,
Is the office reaching out to the providers? Is that what's happening? What do you?
Oh, okay, so the way we did it in the past, we made a list of who we wanted to invite. And I mean, so sometimes it depends who it is. Sometimes we would have maybe a committee of 2 or 3 people who did all the inviting. And then, but sometimes, you know, one of us has like a connection, right? The personal connection that the person, like some of us just like they knew the provider, they knew the health clinic. And so they were the ones who did the outreach, and everyone was just CC'd. So we knew like who was coming and who was, you know, who was going to be confirmed. So it is not just the office. I mean, if Susan has like a connection to a provider that we all don't have because through her work, then maybe she's the logical person. But if you have, like if we've named a certain provider or organization and you're the one with the connection because you've worked with them and you know you're a member of the committee that's organizing this, then it would be logical for you to do it. So yeah, it is, yeah, we're looking for committee members to help put this on. So, but the main thing is that we have to decide who we would invite, and we can make a list, and we have some, like, backups in case, like, someone, or a backup in case someone doesn't show up. So it's not a lot of a huge panel. It can be like 5 people, right? 5, we said. Yeah, I think not like 5, right?
I think you need to be more specific about what the panel is going to cover.
Right. So yeah, so we do that, then we'll know who. Do we also want to talk about families? Because we have, students in temporary housing.
I think absolutely. They're in temporary housing. They're going from place to place. Schools have to deal with, have to provide services. They have special needs. Absolutely. I think we should include them.
To go on what Larissa was saying and thinking about that Susan and you, everyone has been asking what to add to the agenda. I think it's important that we invite the superintendent to speak on how many kids have come back since school has started. As I know we were missing several hundreds of students who were still not comfortable in transitioning back into in-person learning. So we can invite her and ask her for our latest district numbers, as well as how many counts have we gotten, how many of the school funds, the money that we got, how many schools have been able to hire full social workers that were part of their own needs mission statements.
Well, okay, so if we're gonna, you mean overall numbers
Are
of
we
all
talking about
students?
homeless students? Or are we talking about all students? And do they
Homeless
have
and
numbers on
displaced.
homeless? Do they
They
have
do
numbers?
have, yes, they speak about it at the DLT. They have numbers on how many students are in temporary housing, permanent housing, doubled up in shelters. They have all those numbers, yes.
Well, if someone, besides the numbers, if someone, I don't know if it's the superintendent, or if someone can talk about students in shelter, or, family and their families, and someone who's local, that includes like the numbers, coming back and all that, then that would be good. That could, that could be a focus topic of one of the
And their
panelists.
and their needs.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Do you know anyone like that, Laura?
I'll start reaching out.
Or Heidi? Okay, so, and Heidi, do you also know someone, or maybe the 2 of you can put your brains together on that?
Yeah, if you want to reach out to me, just let me know exactly, like a little more. I think I need something more specific. There's lots of, it's kind of a big question.
Okay. Yeah, because Laura, I don't know if you know, but Heidi is with the Troop 6000. So.
That's right.
Okay. So that's one topic, the students in temporary housing. Their needs, if they've come back or not. Okay, what else? We want to get a little bit more specific now.
We're talking about just homeless, our homeless needs in general, correct, May?
Homeless youth? You mean homeless youth in school, or?
Oh,
No,
just,
before we were
we're talking
talking about
different subjects for
students
the
in temporary
panel.
housing, so that's,
Okay.
there's students in school.
Right, well, homeless youth would be another topic if we could cover that, yeah. I thought you were talking about overall, like what subjects, of what topics we want.
Oh, okay, so
panel.
youth, okay, youth not necessarily in school and not necessarily school age, but young people. Is there a definition of the age? And is there a
Talking about
local?
like the, what they would define as like the crusties, like the older youth who are street homeless. Is that what we're talking about?
I don't know. Is that a topic that we want to put on the panel?
I know I'm really still focused on like mental health for homeless overall.
Okay, you want to focus on mental health overall
For homeless
for homeless.
services, making sure that there are referrals, there's outreach, and there's follow-up. The follow-up is the most important part.
Okay, is there like a clinic that specializes in that? Or does that? Or may or may not be a clinic? Does Henry Street do that?
We have
Not that I'm aware of. I know they have, facilities for their clients, but I'm not aware that anybody does any outreach like that. They should be, but I'm not aware of anyone that does.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think of when community access was here. Did they talk about that at all? They talked about service. They talked about services they provided in their facility.
I don't recall. Okay, so we should, okay, so we can, so in terms of what Larissa is talking about, we can see if community access is a good panelist to have or not. But we need to find out, we need to sort of recall or find out more what it is they do. Is that correct, Susan?
I would say so, because we had hoped that they would partner with homeless outreach. And it turned out they said they were too restricted by their regulations, that this is what I remember, that they couldn't do that they had to be in their facility.
Oh,
But someone can call and ask them.
if they provide mental health services for the homeless.
Or, I mean, Larissa was talking about outreach, if they do any outreach.
Well,
Or if
there is outreach.
They know anybody that does outreach.
Well, there is outreach and then there are services. And
Well,
they're not-
outreach for mental health services.
Outreach for mental health services, only outreach.
Well, no, you'd want to follow up also. But to start,
Larissa's on mute, but okay.
Sorry, yeah, follow-up. I think follow-up is crucial. Not just not reaching out, not offering the services, but following up on with people are, did they take advantage of the services? Are there referrals going out? Like, can't just do outreach and then move on.
All right, so it may be, if that is the case, so it may not just be one organization. Because some may do outreach and they may refer to someone else. Okay, so first of all, someone can contact community access. Susan, if you still have the person, I mean, or someone else can contact them and ask them, unless you talk to them regularly.
I don't talk to them at all.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll find out we'll find out the contact information from you, okay?
Yeah, I'm sure I have it in an old email.
Okay. So Larissa, are you specifically speaking about street homeless, mental health services for the street homeless?
Yes, specifically.
Okay. Anything else?
Doesn't sound like people want to do this.
Yeah, I know it's, oh yeah, how does everyone feel about this? I mean, we can always, if people don't have the appetite to do it now, we can always, I mean, it always can be done another time, or, you know, even
Can
next
we
year.
send off something in writing like we've done in the past?
What do you mean?
We've had like the top 10 needs, and we would all either check it off or write, you know, whatever addendum to it. Or if there's something new, then write that in and then come back and talk. Because we've done that.
Well, you're talking about planning for the panel, or you're talking about sending something to the panelist? I'm not sure
Oh,
what you're talking about, Carmen.
sorry about that. Okay, then yeah, no, we could certainly do that for the panel.
Or what
But
were
like
you
the top 5, you know, discussion topics.
You mean in terms of planning?
Right. Because
Okay,
that
so
way
we,
kind of,
Then you're losing a whole month. You can't do that in April for me.
I see. Okay, understood.
I guess for me, my question is, like, at the end of the day, the point of having the providers come in is to inform the district needs statement. And if these are providers that are supporting folks that have obviously a need, I guess the question is, what do we want to know from them? And you said, what do they need? How can, like, I guess I may have missed the part where you articulated the, like, are there specific questions that you want to ask them? Or is it just a general of them reporting what they do and what they need, you know, where are the shortcomings? Are we advocating for them getting funding? I guess it's a little mixed up in my head right now. And that has nothing to do with anybody except me. It's just mixed up in my head.
so as in the past, we would want to come up with a list of questions. So first, I mean, like first we need the general topics and to invite the panelists, but we need to give them all a list of like maybe 4 or 5 questions, and they send it back to us just so that we have them. And then they can, I think in the past we let them present about it. They gave a little presentation that was the answer to the question. So they come in prepared with addressing what we want to talk about. And then after that, you know, there is room for other Q&A, you know, for Q&A because, you know, so that, but it's all related to providing services. It's not about anything else. It's all related to the needs of, you know, the population. Yeah, so they don't just come in and talk, you know, they come in with a structured, you know, a structure. It's fairly structured. And that's so that, you know, so that we get the most out of it. So there's just a lot of advanced work we have to do, you know, and some of it can be done, you know, in between meetings. But first we have to decide the outline, and then, you know, different committee members can, you know, some may be interested, you know, in devising the questions, you know, and then we need to contact the panelists. And then we gotta get them. It's like doing these, I don't know if you guys ever did candidate surveys for, you know, candidates for political office, you know, getting back their answers, you know, kind of part of the battle sometimes. So that, you know, but, you know, they have done it for us in the past, and, you know, just requires some persistence.
I say again, I just don't think it sounds like most people are interested in doing this.
Yeah. So yeah, so okay, so why don't we can have a show of hands, okay? Do we want to do this or not?
Can I ask a question before we, you know, vote? Is it correct that the purpose of this is to inform the district service needs, or is it to reach the public?
The primary purpose in the past has been to inform the district needs, but since this is a public meeting and it was like a more interesting, a different way to inform the district needs, a different way for us to get the information. But, but since we're having this meeting with all of them there, members of the public are invited, and some of them came, but they were interested in, the topic.
Right, I'm just wondering, I'm asking that question because I think that's like, you're trying to reach the public to get the information to them. There's a lot more.
No, we're trying to, no, we're not getting
outreach
information
that
to the
needs
public,
to
we're getting it.
happen to people, so that we want to make sure that the people that need that information actually get it, versus if it's just for the district needs, then I'm not sure we need to have like a whole panel over these things. I think it seems like it would be sufficient to have those folks, those providers, come to our meetings to help inform those.
Well, we could do that too. We have done that in the past where it was not so much of an event, but just a regular meeting. So if people feel more comfortable, maybe with just the regular, the meeting is going to be in person, okay? Because we will be, we are, because of, we will likely be in person by then unless something happens. So, but if people would rather have it as a regular meeting and not so much as an event, we could do that too. And maybe, or we could, so the advantage of the event, was that they were all there together at one time. We could do it, take care of it all at one time. I mean, so we can, so if people feel more comfortable promoting this as just a meeting, we could do that too. Susan?
So it sounds like the difference would be whether you have this panel discussion or whether you have like a day where you have 3 different providers come in and they're still answering the same questions. They're just sort of not sitting at a panel together. So what you're not getting is the conversation between the panelists, which I thought, particularly for like the community health clinics and the special education was really interesting. As far as who comes, like when we had the special education one on needs, for students with IEPs and that kind of thing, we had a number of people come. And when we did the one for the clinics, nobody came because I think it was a little bit sort of esoteric outside their everyday needs, which I expect this will also. David has his hand up, I think.
Oh, yes, David.
Right. This is for the district needs. Whether you call it a panel or not, it's a format that is very useful for all the reasons Susan's described. It may draw in some people, and that is fine. Remember, we've done 2 different education ones like EIP. Susan just referred to one that was a few years ago, which was for the district needs. And then more recently, one happened, which was for the, really we tried to draw on the parents, and it was more than just a panel, right? That was something larger. We are not talking about doing a larger thing like that. It really is just a matter of bringing in the main providers for this area, letting them talk to each other, asking them some guided questions, and then really capturing what we feel are the needs. And we have discovered things that were, very interesting when we've done this in the past. I am thrilled to attend this thing. I'm not that thrilled to help set it up, but it's, it's outside of my, it is outside of my expertise. And anyway, if you're feeling like, wow, there's not enough interest in making it happen, I'd encourage a few of us to, chime in there now and say we would like to make it happen. As far as for actually doing it, I absolutely think that we should, if we can, get the gumption together.
I don't think it's that much work because we've done them several times and we know it's like you do this, you do this, you do this.
If people are, because it's so controversial right now. If we would like to, promote it in a different way, more just as a regular meeting, as I said, last year we invited lots of providers, to the meetings. I mean, they weren't talking about homelessness, but would that be better? It's just a regular meeting for our district needs.
I know I'm more comfortable with that. I'm following David. I have no problem attending. I have no interest in hosting it. I feel I don't want to take on that responsibility and say that we're going to have this done by May. I'm not comfortable with saying that. If we want to push it a couple of months into the summer, if that's possible, then fine. But to say that we're going to have this done by May and it not look like idolatry, it's just not possible. And I'm not comfortable with being associated with that. I would like to continue this conversation and maybe have, a breakdown or something spreadsheet on who's going to take on what. I would have no problem reaching out to the CEC and the district office to get the numbers that I had asked and my questions, and I'll reach out to Heidi offline and see how we can work with one another in getting those numbers for the homeless kids in our schools. That's as far as I know that I'm comfortable in taking on. As everyone knows, I'm very new to this area. I just moved on here right before COVID. So I know of nothing in this area. So I'll be a guest, not a host.
Well, we all will be hosts. It would be a committee meeting. It's not anyone's personal meeting. It is the committee. But and we've done it before. So, but I think 2 months is pretty tight. In the past, we've done it in 3 months. We did not do it in 2 months.
We could manage June.
We can manage, yeah. In the past, so we did start like a month early, and then we would do it in May. So, I mean, in terms of logistics and organizing,
So I was just trying to capture, I think one of the problems is that we're not saying specifically what it is we're doing. And I was just trying to capture the different things I heard. And it sounds like we're talking about possibly a title would be resources needed in CB3 for homeless adults and families. And then you could have under one of them would be students, elementary and high school students. And then maybe, I don't know what it would be for families, thinking mental health resources. Is that kind of what you're saying? I'm just trying to listen to you and kind of pinpoint what it is.
I like that, Susan, where we just narrowed it down to about just 3 points, 3 topics, and I can work with that as opposed to.
Okay, I think I had 2. One was the title, which was resources needed in Community Board 3 for homeless individuals and families. And that, so under that we had, I think what did we say? The students, students' needs. And then one was mental health resources. And then, so that was 2. So if you want a third one, what would you want for the number 3?
So I'm trying to formulate a question and it's not quite coming. So the second thing that you just said was mental health resources for families.
No, for homeless.
For homeless. For homeless.
Just sort of FYI, there's a decrease in homeless families right now and an increase in homeless individuals because people haven't been evicted during COVID.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's more rental assistance and stuff like that. So that helps too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you have 2 topics.
And all of the providers would be asked to speak to those 2 topics.
Well, I don't know that they all could.
Mm-hmm.
You might.
I mean, some may have more of a specialty or knowledge in one. We can't expect all providers to be specialists in everything.
Why not? Come on.
Because if you're not dealing with homeless students, you're not going to know what they need. You want to leave it to those 2? And maybe even
Is
focus.
there another population? I mean, only if
What?
there's another, I mean, you seem to be dividing it into populations as well, like there's families and there's. Right?
Well, maybe do you want to focus on families and students?
But you said individuals was,
Or
they were
you
more
could, yes, there's actually an increase in individuals.
no, I'm not saying we should only focus on families. I'm just saying that there's another specific population, but I guess those are the populations.
Those will be the three: individuals, students, and families.
Well, so for the individuals, what is it? What kind of providers and what is it specifically you're asking? Are you asking for providers? Is this street homeless or is this individuals in temporary housing? You know, which is it? Are you talking about outreach, or are you talking about resources for people that are in shelter, some type of shelter housing?
So that
And
could
I-
be the third topic, right?
Well, I'm asking, what
Well,
is it?
When we started, I thought we were talking about, I don't know why I made the assumption that we were talking about street homeless, because that's
Okay.
such a huge need right now. I mean, that was the way that I heard it, but you know,
I'm just asking, I'm just trying to narrow it, capture and narrow it down, that's
Yep.
all. So if it's street homeless, what are we asking, what resources are lacking in outreach for street homeless? Is that what it is?
When it comes to street homeless, is that the major, sort of like the major topic? Just outreach?
I I don't know how to answer that, because we're talking about mental health resources as a separate topic, when that actually would be part of outreach. And I don't know if you're doing outreach, you know, and then what providers, if then you're kind of limited. Most of our providers are not outreach providers. So who are you going to ask to come speak?
Well, the only outreach providers are that consortium, right? Although they're not
Right.
local.
And I don't know, Heidi, do you think they would be allowed to talk to us really about what they need? Do they have to go through, like,
I think so.
you think so?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so I could ask them. I never know whether they're constrained by like the agency, press office, or that kind of stuff. We can certainly ask them and get into, maybe get into the translation issue also. The fact that they don't have translation resources.
Okay. All right. So there's a street homeless, there's the adults in the shelters, and there's the families.
Well,
And students will be, do we include students with families or?
We had that
Don't know
as
if-
a separate one. And
Oh, okay.
students who are homeless or in temporary shelters, right? Is that it?
Mhm. And they're
So-
usually with a family, right? But it's still a separate topic.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then we had, so I'm not clear what it is, the family. Should we do it? I'm saying this just to make it easier. We seem to have two very strong topics. One is the homeless students and one is street homeless. Do you want to just limit it to those two topics and then make mental health and translation and all that part of each of those?
Oh, okay. So what do people think?
I think that sounds
Raise-
good.
I vote yes for that.
I think that sounds good.
Okay.
Can that not be broken down for the next 3 meetings? And that could be like the main agenda on the next 3 meetings where we focus on those, what we just discussed, instead of it just being one big
panel, resource fair.
No, it's not a resource fair. Yeah, I know. You were always thinking resource fair. It's not a resource fair.
It's easier for my brain to comprehend by me saying that.
Yeah, actually, you know what we also did is we didn't have a resource fair, but they did bring like brochures, and the speakers brought like brochures about their organization, you know, which they put out there, and if anybody came, they could give it out, you know, but we didn't invite, like we didn't have like a resource fair outside of that. So it was a fairly, so it wasn't like that ambitious an event. And maybe it is good to have them together, you know, and they kind of, you see them all together and we can talk them all together and they can talk to each other or meet each other.
Yeah,
If they haven't met
there's
each other
synergy
before.
between them. So for the students, Laura and Heidi are going to offline, is this correct? I'm just trying to capture, talk about who you would invite to come and maybe some questions to start asking. And what do you want, like maybe 2 providers on that? Or-
Yes, I'll reach out to this CC and ask them if they can help with the questions and surveying the community.
Okay, so that's Heidi and Laura. And could you maybe like in 2 weeks, just kind of report back by email, you know, who you're asking or whether you've contacted them and all that? And then for street homeless, I can certainly contact Manhattan Outreach Consortium. Do you want other local, just suggestions could be Bowery Mission. I don't know how much outreach they do. Does anyone have any ideas on anyone else for outreach? Housing Works has been going out a lot with MOC to do like harm reduction with homeless adults. We could ask them. I could ask Bowery Mission if they do any outreach. I'm not sure that they do, but they might. They now have both an emergency shelter as well as a more permanent space shelter.
You know, it just occurred to me, remember that little project in SDR Park? We got that group we got.
It's Bowery Mission. They're the
Oh,
ones.
that's Bowery Mission? Okay. You know
Actually,
the project I'm talking about, right? The one that,
Yeah, it's Bowery
Okay.
Mission and they're doing it with, it's called City Relief.
okay.
So you want me to ask them?
I mean, if they're doing this little thing in the
Okay.
park or, you know.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Okay, so maybe people.
Yeah,
can
because Kay actually reached out to me the other day about getting more like help with the Chinese, you know. I mean, to me, you know, as my organization, you know, so it seems like they still need more help. But
Yeah, I wish you would copy me when she does that because I'm kind of doing the same thing at the same time.
oh, okay, I'll let her know. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. It's just keep us all in the loop.
Okay.
Do people want to start thinking if they have any questions to ask on street homeless? Thomas, you deal with homeless students, don't you?
Yeah, we have quite a few for a small school. I mean, upwards of 35 to 40%. Like
Wow.
temporary housing as well as, you know, in the systems. And it's for varying reasons. Some kids come in from out of town and they're staying with somebody, but like, you know, it's a lot of kids.
That
And
is,
there's been a lot of funding that we've had for them. So it's been a consistent problem, but I'm not sure, you know, I don't know what angle we can have because we're documenting. And one of the big things for us was maintaining their attendance because those are the students that, you know, they tend to not graduate, they tend to not excel. So, you know, I'm not sure if the monitoring has been as efficient because I remember when COVID started, like, you know, they wouldn't even release what was your attendance for the day. And it's like, are you kidding me? Like, how could you not have that information available to the public? It was a lot of hiding of information. And so I don't know. I think we could also check if our district has more homelessness than other districts and why. And maybe, what are the resources that are available for these families if it's been such a consistent problem?
Well, I think from that education panel we found that we have particularly a couple of elementary schools with huge percentage of students who are homeless.
Mhm.
PS 19 and 188.
You mean PS 15?
15, PS 15, I'm sorry, you're right, on 4th Street, and PS 188 particularly. And then your school, we were only looking at elementary schools, so then your school would be in that category too.
Mhm.
Okay.
So maybe a follow-up email on kind of who's doing what and what, what questions people should be thinking about or something like that.
Yes, please.
Susan, I don't know if this is, I guess, appropriate for the district the district needs. But you and I have talked about, and it's definitely something that I think is more prevalent over the years. It's with the mental health issues. I think everybody during COVID has been experiencing mental health issues, but then particularly dangerous lately has become with people on the street. And you and I have talked about it in terms of, the need for a reevaluation of what is an EDP, an emotionally disturbed person, and, changing laws and what it means when you are evacuated to the hospital for 24 hours for that. So I'm not sure if that would be something. The only thing I can think about it in terms of district needs are, is there like funding somehow that can go into something like that more. But I do think that is a pressing issue and really relevant to mental health, to the intersection between mental health and homelessness over the past.
Wouldn't you think maybe that would be like a separate little section in the district? You're as familiar with the district needs stuff, I think, from the other end as I am probably.
Yeah.
Don't you think like maybe that could be like a separate, I'm going to report at the end of the meeting, I'm going to report on a meeting I was at today that's going to talk about that kind of stuff. But I think you're framing it in a little bit more broader difference way. And I do agree with you that that maybe could be a separate like paragraph or two in the district needs.
Yeah, I'm just saying for these panels, whatever we're
Yeah.
calling them, for someone to, if one of the speakers or multiple of the speakers, if we can
Address those.
prepare and ask them, like, is this something that they can kind of talk about, like what needs to change so that people who need the help, it doesn't have to rise to the level that they're violent and then they're evacuated or arrested if it's a crime, that they have to reach them before that to prevent these things from happening.
So could you write a few questions on that so that would bring out that information from them?
Sure, yeah.
And then we'll make it when we reach out to them, we'll make that part of the questions to send to them.
Okay. Okay, so in 2 weeks, we're going to get emails with some follow-up, right?
The first thing is going to be a follow-up email on who's doing what.
Why don't can we just put that in the minutes?
Okay, if you want, yeah,
Right? That'll be the minutes will be in a week.
okay. And then 2 weeks. Follow up on coordinators, on like who they've been speaking to and can get to the meeting. Thomas, do you want to kind of report back on what issues you think you could bring from your school, or, that would be useful? Because this would be high school.
Yeah, we could definitely do that. Get a snapshot of Because like I said, it's always disproportionate with the special ed students as well. So that goes hand in hand. And although the services are available to them, a lot of them, they're not taking advantage of them. Or maybe they might not know what's out there.
So then the need is how do you get people to take these services?
Mhm.
Okay, I think you have the beginning of a project.
Okay, good. Okay, so we'll have that. And then anything else we need to discuss on this today? So Susan, we're gonna work on locations, right? Or I guess you have to see what opens up.
We can do that. Larissa, what would you think about asking Gouverneur if we could use their downstairs auditorium?
I was thinking the exact same thing. They have.
I'll send you
beautiful
the date.
auditorium.
I'll send you the date, okay?
Okay, perfect. I will definitely reach out to Dr. Gagliardi and see what we can do about arranging that.
Okay, that would be great.
Okay. All right, so are we done with this? Is there anything else we need to discuss on this tonight? Okay. Oh, David, did you want to say something? Okay. All right, in that case, if not, we will move on to the next agenda item, which is a follow-up to our presentation from last month, when we had Eric Botcher come and talk about his 8-point mental health plan. So after the meeting, I learned that they're just still taking, feedback about the plan. So it's not like they already have a specific roadmap or agenda or what should go first. But they're still interested in taking feedback. So since we heard from them, we can provide feedback as well. And we can think about the points that we want to maybe focus on or emphasize on or prioritize, or if we don't want to look at it that way, maybe we can also think about, what's needed immediately and what can be later. We have, budget priorities coming up. So some of that may simply fit in there. But no matter what, we can, send something to him in his office, about our reaction to his plan. So those are all options we can do. And we can pass a reso on it too. And then we would send it to his office if we have like a specific, we have specific ideas or feedback on the plan. Did anyone go back to, there was a short, the tape from last time, the video from last time. There was a short section in the beginning of the meeting, and near the beginning of the meeting, where after he spoke, a few of the other committee members, 3 of you actually gave, made comments on specific sections because it was of concern to you. So what I heard was talk about school social workers, funding. There was funding for this year. I think Thomas talked about that, but it's unclear if there's funding for next year. And it needs to continue. There was a lot of talk about people in crisis, and they need to be able to stay longer, but often they're not, or have no other place to be referred to. And some of these nonprofits, I think he mentioned Fountain House, they're great, but they're overwhelmed. There was something about respite beds. There was something about, I think this is what Larissa just referred to earlier in this meeting, about more like interworking or, communication between regular providers. There needs more like a referral, intergroup referral, which isn't being done enough. Interagency communications. And then there's something about after being dismissed from the hospital, where people still need a place. You know, long-term caseworkers. I think Carmen talked about seniors and especially Alzheimer's and dementia. And then we talked about mental illness of people living on the street. That's what, those are some of the comments that I heard. I don't know if I missed anything. Does anyone have any ideas about how we could structure some kind of feedback?
Well, could some of it be like legislation, some of it funding? I mean, what are the different things needed for the different topics? Like for the communication, I feel like protocols have to be created, and how does that happen? Is that through city council oversight? Is that through city council legislation? You know,
Well, maybe we don't have to. I mean, if we have ideas on how that's done, we can put it in, but we don't. Should we not then say?
that's why I was
I don't
just
know.
trying to come up with an idea of how to
Oh,
structure
okay.
it. I think it would be great to write them a letter.
I think so. What do you all have to say? A little quiet here. I mean, we could, I mean, this is not like the final thing too. We could write him a letter and, you know, we can, you know, have another, invite him back for more follow-up, you know, to start something. I just mentioned some points. Are those the points that you know, this is just what I heard from, you know, reviewing the video. Are those the ones that we should itemize in our letter?
Yes. And I like the idea of bringing him back in a couple of months just to see how much work and progress he has made with his 8-point plan.
Okay. Should we, okay, I mean, it's already 7:54. What we can also do is maybe draft the letter that we can review next month. So it's not something, so we wouldn't get it out this month. We'd have to wait, you know, a couple of months. Can I have a show of hands if that's the, does that sound like the plan we want to do? Okay, I see that Larissa and David, oh, are you raising your hands because
Laura.
you're saying yes or you want to speak?
For me, saying
That
yes,
shows
I like
me.
the idea of sending him a letter and then following up, potentially having him back.
All right, so in terms of the letter itself, we can we draft a letter that's we can look at next month? Because we haven't written it now yet, so that we could look at next month, and if it's something that we can vote on to send. Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah,
Yes?
Yeah.
Everyone say yes, raise your hand and put your thumbs up, raise your hand. Okay. Okay, so it seems like everyone has their thumbs, and most have their thumbs up, so that's what we will do. Okay, I'll, you know, just write up what we said, and then we'll have a letter or a draft of a letter next week that we can vote on. Okay, any other comments or questions on this? Okay, so I'll send out maybe something before the meeting, and you know, people can add to it, but we'll still, you know, vote and review on it at the next meeting. Okay. Okay, are there any comments on this? Anything else anybody has to say? Okay, it looks like there is none. Okay. So let's go to, we're gonna go to old business and new business and also cabs. Were there any cab meetings this past month? Larissa?
Yeah, actually, it's been a little weird the last few months because of holidays hitting and Mondays not being, not having a first Monday before our meeting. Typically, the Gouverneur.
Okay,
cab
this is for
meets
the
before.
Gouverneur cab, right? Okay.
Right, for Gouverneur cab, sorry. So last month, the majority of the focus of our meeting was preparation for our budget advocacy day. We've been doing a lot of planning and outreach and review. Gouverneur is still on track, trying to secure funding and an approval for an urgent care that will be located on the first floor of Gouverneur. Basically, the space would be shared with the World Trade Center organization, World Trade Center treatment centers, and urgent care. It would help feed into appointments and follow-up from the urgent care with providers within the Gouverneur system. We were presented with an alternative plan if that was not able to be funded, although that is our preference as far as the cab goes, to have a diabetes center of excellence and eye care center, because we know eye problems go hand in hand with advanced diabetes. And that would also be an alternative use for that space on the first floor. So we are looking into the funding and the feasibility for both of those programs. We had a wonderful advocacy day. Yuli New came she popped into our advocacy day in person, and she gave us some great feedback. We had been doing a lot of follow-up with Judson Center, which is part of the Gouverneur system. They are in great need for a complete makeover of their second floor. We toured that space, and we talked to the administration there. We also toured the first floor space for Gouverneur with the potential build out, and talked about the alternatives for that space. I've got some good feedback. Yuling would like to continue the conversation with Gouverneur and see about securing the funding. She is going to advocate for funding for Judson going forward. And she wants to hear more about urgent care Judson. This coming week, we're actually meeting to approve our updated bylaws for Gouverneur. So that's about it.
Okay. Okay, good. There were no other cabs, right? Susan?
Yeah, so I wanted to just mention we're at another stage in the budget. And May, you sent out the comments there. So in January, we do our district needs. In the fall, we do our budget priorities. And then in October, we send everything to the agencies. In January, generally in January, this year in February, the preliminary budget comes out. And at the same time, we get from the agencies, we get answers to our budget requests. And some of them are useful and many of them are not. And the city asks us to, as part of the process, to comment on the preliminary budget. And basically it's a second opportunity to lobby for our priorities. If to do all of them would take a lot of work. To be honest, I didn't pay attention to them during the de Blasio administration because I felt they totally ignored everything we did anyway. So why do additional stages of work? This year, I went through some of them and picked out things that seemed like they were possible to fund, or the answers, like if we got an answer, this is federal funding, I thought, well, maybe it's not useful to lobby a lot for that because we don't have influence on the federal funding. A lot of times we get answers that basically are double speak, and Department of Homeless Services particularly likes to do that. And every year when we ask for additional funding, like for homeless outreach workers, they'll give us an explanation of what their process is and how they outreach. So this year I just basically wrote a comment, which you said, saying basically this isn't what we asked. What we understand the process. More funding is needed for resources. So that's what I sent to you. I did that for maybe 4 or 5 altogether for the different agencies, just pick some top priorities. All of these are on the website. May, I don't know if you sent the website links to the board committee members?
Yeah, the link to the whole thing. Yeah, I did.
Okay.
The link to the whole thing, right? From Manhattan CB3, yeah.
So under resources on our website, I have all of the agency's answers, and people really should go through and look at their committees, because sometimes it'll say, more information is needed. You should meet with the agency. The agency supports requests, but funding is not available now. So does that mean you want to go to an elected official, depending on what it is, to try and get funding? The budget, it's not intuitive, the city process, but it's a really important part of community board work. And I would like to suggest that people go to the link that May sent on the under member resources and look at the responses. You can just look at the human services responses. So it really isn't that much. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm hoping that next year maybe we'll have some retention and people will go through and maybe try and pick out things that they want to answer or lobby for. And it can involve going, testifying at city council meetings, that kind of thing also. So did anyone read the comments at all that May sent out on the, one was for more safe havens and one was for increased funding for outreach workers. Okay, so I didn't know if there's any questions, whether any of this makes any sense, whether it's just really boring or how people felt about it.
Sometimes I'm a little bit like conflicted because I've heard you say before, it's not very useful. So why should we be commenting on things that are not useful? I mean, their comments are not useful, their responses are not useful. So why should we be commenting on things that are not useful,
So what I said is I didn't bother with comments under de Blasio because I didn't think he paid any attention to them. Mm-hmm. And what I'm saying as far as whether some of their responses are useful, the idea is to make change. And so we should say this is not, in a way, this is not a useful comment. On top of that, there is a relatively new network. I've mentioned I don't know if this committee, the 59 community board district managers is called Future of CBs. And just last week, we met with the two top people in city planning and specifically talked about the district needs statement and about these responses. And we're going to have a follow-up meeting with them. So we're not just complaining that these responses aren't useful. We're talking about it and we're meeting with them and we're trying to change it. And I do believe the people that we're working with at city planning right now in this administration is much more open to talking about it. So that's why I think it's useful. Deborah?
Hi. First, I'm having all kinds of computer trouble, so I had to log back in on my phone. I'm sorry about that. You answered my question because I was going to say whether or not it's the responses themselves are read or if they make a difference. You're putting it in writing, and it's a response that makes sense. So it's on the public record to say that this is what we're asking for. So, but you answered that. So.
Yes. Specifically, we send a letter to Office of Management and Budget divided by agencies and then the response for each agency. So Office of Management and Budget sees it and then they send it to the agencies. So yes, if a lot of people do it, which I believe a lot of us are, because there's a lot of boards that are fed up with answers that aren't particularly useful. I do believe we can change it.
You know, I noticed that there were a few of the priorities under human services that it said it was funded. Is that did we make a mistake in putting that up there, or or it was something that happened after we submitted?
Do you remember which one it was?
There was something about seniors and various things. I'm sorry. Maybe it was
for an expense thing for seniors. No, it wasn't.
What was it? I don't have it in front of me.
One of the homeless issues said, well, for safe havens, they said, so this is an example of a request that is not, or an answer that's not useful. We asked for more funding for safe havens and their answer is this has been funded. Well, that's impossible because we need like hundreds more safe havens. And yes, you have funded 2 more in CB3, but that is not enough. And I actually spoke about that answer to Associate Commissioner at DHS and she agreed it was a silly answer.
Okay.
So I don't know. And then let me see what there's other expand street outreach. They say this has already been funded. No, it's not. It's that's one of the ones that I responded to. The people who are outreaching saying they don't have enough resources. So yes, you have funded it. You have not funded it adequately.
Okay.
So if there's no more questions about that, if you don't mind, I'd like to just take a few minutes to report on a meeting that I had today that was very relevant to some of the questions in the earlier part of the meeting. Is that okay, Meg?
Yes, I don't see any hands raised for more questions, so you can go ahead with that report.
Okay. So Tompkins Square Park has serious issue with homelessness that appears to me to be exacerbated by lack of mental health outreach services, not enough harm reduction, which are issues that we were talking about in the beginning of the meeting. There's actually encampments in tent cities, and we have sweeps going through and cleaning it up. And so I had asked the commanding officer to hold an interagency meeting because there's not collaboration across agencies. And he said he would, but he didn't. So I asked Carlina to do it and work closely with that office. And we had that meeting at 3 o'clock today. And we had almost 30 people there from different agencies. We had DHS, we had outreach, we had Department of Mental Health there we had the mayor's office on mental health. We had the mayor's office on intergovernmental affairs and the police, and then that special police sweep unit. We had Parks Commissioner, Borough Commissioner, and we kind of tried to hear from them and talk. And we had the program director for homeless outreach was really, really good and talked about lack of mental health. They do partner with Housing Works twice, I think every other week, to do harm reduction. They've arranged that with our help. That came after our meeting that we had with Housing Works and the outreach. So we asked, they said there is a need for mental health. So then we had, Heidi might know this program better than me. It's called HEAT, and I don't know what HEAT stands for, but it's a mobile mental health crisis response. So they were talking about their wonderful program, and we said, how many people are you working with in Tompkins Square Park right now? How many are you evaluating? How many are you following up with, and all that? And the answer was 0. And the answer is 0 in Community Board 3 because they don't have money. And one of the things that I heard, not at this meeting, is that, the mayor's subway initiative for homeless has drained a lot of resources. So some of your social workers from the schools that you tried very hard to get in the schools are now not in the schools, they're in the subways, working, trying to do outreach. There is not a penny right now or staff or resources. There is no agency that's overall charged. DHS does their outreach. Mental health does their mental health thing. There can be referrals, but clearly there is nothing happening. So one of the suggestions, it was very sort of just depressing and disappointing that this is happening in New York City and no one's even looking at this issue. But Carlina was really, really great. Pauline from Department of Mental Health suggested that there are 2 places in the city have task forces that bring the agencies together on a regular basis. One is 125th Street, one is Washington Square Park. And Carlina committed to doing this, and the mayor's office, intergovernmental area, part of the office, said they would follow up on these issues, and Carolina's office is following up with them. So I'm hopeful that we can make something happen in this little area. But it just shows, all the things you were talking about at the beginning of the meeting, it just shows the lack of what's happening. And to me, the total incompetency of even a program to make this work. So I just wanted to report on that.
So this is for Tompkins Square Park only, right?
It was because that is an intense area. I mean, we just got 2 needle kiosks, or no, more than 2. We got several needle kiosks in from Housing Works, but for some reason they're not being used as well as the ones in Sarah Dillon or Roosevelt Park are, but the police are finding huge amounts of needles. So there is a tremendous amount of drug use. One thing I didn't know I learned today is people tend to use drugs in the park rather than where they live, particularly in congregate shelters, because they feel safer doing it in the park. So,
any questions about that? Yeah, I saw an email about that. So that's an ongoing meeting you've been having about Tompkins Square Park.
no, it took this long.
Oh, that was the first meeting.
Yeah, there's been one in previous years. They were called by a commanding officer at the time, but you have to have the right person who cares about those things. And so this one was under my initiative, and I had help. Spent a lot of time getting the right people there, but I had help, like from Carlina's office, and Pauline Ferrante is our liaison for mental health from Department of Health. So anyway, I just wanted to report back on the lack of resources. I think it's something to focus on much more when we do our next budget priorities. Lack of resources and the 100% lack of collaboration. Nobody knows what anyone's doing.
And you mentioned the task force that was on 125th Street and Washington Square Park.
Those are two task forces. The 125th Street was started by a former speaker, and the one at Washington Square Park was started by Gail Brewer. But Carolina has committed to doing that, and a rep from the borough president's office was there, and he committed to helping where necessary too. But so, you know, I feel like something will happen. The reason I wanted to report it to you is because you've been talking about the mental health, and particularly after Eric's report last month, the lack of any protocol or oversight to even try to have collaboration. There's nothing there. There's just nothing there.
Okay, well, it's good to hear you had the meeting today. We'll get something started, which was a long time. Should have started a long time ago, but sounds like. Okay. Okay, is there any other new business, old business that we need to discuss? Please raise your hand if so. Okay, it doesn't look like that there is.
May, just really
Yes.
quick, one thing I would like to do, since we've been going on 4 years at Gouverneur trying to get an urgent care located at Gouverneur, we discussed on the committee to involve support from the community boards, and maybe, you know, as far as a letter of support or some outreach on behalf of Gouverneur for funding. So I'd like to forward some information to you and see if we could put it on an agenda for another month to kind of move this forward. It's just been stalled for so many years.
Oh, which month is it? You need it for soon, for like next month? Or
no,
what?
it's not a specific month because really the state budget has been done, but
Yeah.
you know,
So
like to
this
get
would
some
be a
momentum
state
going
budget
and
thing.
get it. Yeah, we would love to get some momentum going and get it on the agendas of our elected officials, and so we can get this moving forward.
And you're working on next fiscal year. I mean, because this
Yeah.
one is practically over.
Well, but we're having a state election soon. Maybe you want to get them to commit to it before the election, November election.
That would be beautiful. It's the ideal time to start asking for the big ticket items. So yeah, we're almost there. We're so close to getting it. Yeah. So I would
Okay,
I'm going to forward the information to you, and I'd love to see if we can get that on the agenda.
Okay, so for the information, we could get it on the agenda, and also think about somebody who could come speak to us about it.
We've already
'Cause
I got that on
yeah.
our agenda for our cab, talking to either Dr. Gagliardi or one of the other administrators who could come out and really give you a detailed information and answer all your questions about where we are, where we're short. We've already started getting quotes back for the site, but we have a great program laid out.
Okay. Okay, that sounds like a plan. All right. Okay, if there's nothing else, we can go to the final roll call. Thomas?
Yes. Okay, so May is present, Thomas is present, Larissa,
Present.
David,
Present.
no Eric, no Shirley, Deborah,
Present.
no Alicia, Laura,
Yeah.
Heidi,
Present.
and no Ricky, Carmen,
Present.
And Mr. Rangel is in the house. How are you doing, Paul?
I thought I'd sneak in. Say hi.
Good
You
to
have
see
any
you.
special greetings for us?
I just came to say hi.
Give you a report.
I don't have a report. Nothing. Just came
Thomas,
to
I
say
didn't
hi.
follow up right after our vote. The initial roll call. I was here. I was having trouble unmuting. I don't know if you caught that.
Yeah, I did get you. Mhm.
Okay, all
It's good
right.
to
So
see
this-
everyone.
Yeah, it's nice to see you too. So our next meeting, a full board meeting, just to remind you, will be in person at PS 20. So we will see you in the auditorium.
So just to add on, most likely this is the final committee meeting on Zoom. So probably next month, committees will go back face to face, and we are working on all the sites for that. So
Paul,
Great.
just a quick, I just have a question
Sure.
regarding that. Just thinking, for meetings, will there be vaccine checks, masks required? No, none of that. Okay,
Well, masks, we decide, so the state mask is done. We have on our website, or I mean, on our agenda that you must wear masks.
okay.
Because I think that's what the exec said last time or something.
Just
Yeah,
wanted to double check
well-
because there's so much confusion going on regarding where masks are required and where they're not.
Everybody's confused. It's totally
Okay.
confused.
we'll have a lot more clarity on it, but it doesn't seem like we're going to require any of that stuff. So at least we don't have
I
to.
would be thinking we want as many people as possible to be able to come to the meeting, and that could, potentially limit some people.
Yeah, the governor's not going to extend this executive order. It's done. Our Zoom days are over. So look forward to seeing everybody again in a couple of weeks.
In 3D.
All right.
Good night,
Okay, then.
everybody.
Okay, good night. Okay, see you
Night.
soon.
Good night.